This is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be the part 2 of my response video to Non-Compete's Why Capitalism Sucks. And in this video, I'm going to address the next point that he makes in his video about why can't people just start their own business. You know, if they're a disgruntled employee, why can't they just start their own business? So I'm going to let his video play and he makes his argument and I'll respond to his argument.
What some of you are thinking, if Glip can't find a good job on the market, why doesn't he just start his own business? After all, under capitalism, we're all free to become capitalists ourselves and own our own means of production, right? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. In the USA, the average worker makes about $30,000 per year. The average worker only has about $1,000 and $6,000 in credit card debt, and the average worker lives paycheck to paycheck. The average cost to start a business in the United States is about $30,000. Now sure, you could try to bootstrap a business with less money, but you'll still have to spend months without any income, and the most common reason why new businesses fail is a lack of sufficient starting funds.
So he basically makes a very interesting case right now about why not everybody can get into being a capitalist. He says, you know, the average worker only makes $30,000 a year, that they have very little money in the bank, maybe $1,000 saved. They have $6,000 in credit card debt. That's pretty horrible, by the way. And they live paycheck to paycheck. That's very true. I was in that situation. When I first started my business, I had a little less credit card debt, fortunately. But I wasn't making $30,000 a year at that time, so I was kind of broke when I started my business. And most businesses fail, and that's so true. And this is why capitalism it's a brutal system in many, many ways, because it's a huge risk for the capitalists to make, that they do have to give up income that they could get from some other capitalists in order to start their own business. And most people aren't cut out to be capitalists. They fail. Even successful capitalists fail several times before they actually succeed. It's a hard system. It's not easy. But the rewards that can be very great. You look at the Bill Gates, the Jeff Bezos of the world. The rewards of taking that risk can be very, very great. So that's why people take that risk. The risk, is offset by the potential for real financial gains. So yes, it's really bad to be a capitalist. It's a hard situation to be in. But nowadays it's actually easier. They actually say that the average business startup takes $30,000. That actually isn't really true. That might have been true more 10, 15 years ago, but nowadays, not really true. It's actually very easy to start up a business nowadays. And the reason for that is we have the internet. The internet has been the greatest freer of people in history in terms of allowing people with very, very little money to start a business. As a worker, you can actually continue your job, so you don't lose that financial freedom. You might not like your job, but you can at least maintain it and work and have a living that you can use to fund your business. And you can do that and be safe in that respect. But then you can use your off time to really start a business online. And it's very easy to start a business online. That's what my company does. I help companies start businesses online. And I've launched maybe several thousand businesses over the years. And I've worked with companies where it's people with very little money to people that have lots of money. But the point is, it's really easy to set up a business nowadays. You can actually start a business with no money down. where you just start tweeting out affiliate links, for example, and you can make money just tweeting about other people's products, and people will pay you that. Or you can set up a YouTube channel, and you can just record videos, just like I'm recording right now, and you can make money with a YouTube channel. So there's lots of free ways to make money online. And that's the great liberator of the internet, that it really allows anybody to become a capitalist and start their own business. So don't be discouraged by what he's going to say. I'm going to play more of his video, and you'll see that he really talks about really old systems of how evil capitalism is. So let's watch more of his video.
In practice, the freedom to start your own business under capitalism is an illusionary freedom for the vast majority of workers. You just can't be a capitalist without capital. Some capitalism apologists argue that workers can simply improve their circumstances by getting valuable training and education so they can get jobs that are in high demand. But it's simply not realistic at all for most workers to go out and get a medical degree or a master's degree in engineering. Most of us are stuck with the training and education we have now, and that puts most of us in a situation where we're completely at the mercy of merciless employers who have tremendous power over us on the capitalist job market.
So he sets up an argument here where he says that we are at the mercy of the employers because we have only the skills that we have. We have maybe years of experience within a certain industry. There's nobody else in that industry that we can go to with our current skills to get a job. And that situation, it's one of those situations I hear all the time from socialists, that they always talk about, well, that worker, he can't go to some other job because there is no other job in that industry. He's really at the mercy of that capitalist, that evil, evil capitalist, that he controls everything, and therefore they can exploit that worker because that worker has no choice. Well, the funny thing is the worker has always a choice, and that's the great thing about capitalism. Unlike communism, where you have no choice, you have to work. You have no choice. The state will force you to work. You're a slave to the state in a communist system. Well, in a capitalist system, you are free. You can leave, but the great thing is you're not at a disadvantage ever because you have value. You have achieved that value through working, through building up your skills, through learning. One of the things that people don't understand about capitalism is you're not the same employee when you finish a job than when you started. When you start, you might not have very many skills or you might have very low value. But by the end, after months or years of working at a position, you have built up skills. You have built up knowledge. You have built up experience. And that experience has value. So when you go to another job, it might not even be the same industry. They look at that skill that you have, that value that you have, that experience that you have, and they say, well, hey, this person has value. Maybe we can retrain them and make them a valuable person within our company. And that's the great thing about capitalism, that you as an individual have freedom because you can build your own value. And you can go to another job. You have to be open-minded, though, that you can't just say, well, I only want to look for a job in this industry. Well, then you are basically putting the shackles on yourself. It's not the employer doing it. You're the one that's making that decision. You have freedom, but you have to choose to exercise that freedom and look for a job that might not be in your industry, that might not be the most comfortable job that you're familiar with, but at least it's a freedom. It's the freedom to choose. And you might like that new job even better. You never know. They say that the average worker nowadays goes through 3 or 4 jobs before and they might be even full careers where they might not be even related at all. So the point is, we have to be able to be flexible enough that we can go from one job to the next and use what we learned from the previous job to help us in the new job that we get. And we never are in a situation where the employer has control over us. We are free individuals. Okay, so let's watch more of his video.
Have tremendous power over us on the capitalist job market. And even if you do have one of those coveted advanced degrees and the most valuable skills on the market, there's something your employers have that you don't: the means of production. You might be a world-renowned surgeon, but unless you own a hospital, your employer still has leverage over you. You can be a brilliant engineer, but unless you own your own factory, you'll still be at the mercy of your employer. And as time and technology march on, this situation is only getting worse for people in all job fields. Automation has been constricting the supply of jobs for over a century, and cutting-edge innovations in artificial intelligence and robotics are making things exponentially worse. Things are only going to continue to get worse for workers in nearly every industry as long as we rely on the capitalist job market. To put it simply, under capitalism, jobs are a commodity. Your labor is a commodity. Your labor is commodified. No matter what you do, if you're employed by a capitalist, you are simply a cog in the machine of a capitalist enterprise.
Okay, so some more interesting stuff. There's so many points that he makes that have to be addressed. The first was that it's really difficult to get more value and more by going back to university. Yes, that's the case. It is expensive to get career training. It is expensive, but you can still use what you have to get other jobs. So don't worry too much about that. But the big point that he was talking about in this second clip was means of production, that the capitalists control the means of production. Well, the strange thing is nowadays that's becoming less and less the case, especially with automation. What's really interesting, and most people don't understand this, is that as automation and really these systems are created that basically remove workers from the system, it actually sets up new opportunities where, as an individual, you can leverage technology. You might not get it at the cheapest rate, where if you own the actual means of production, but you can still leverage that means of production. If you are familiar with fulfillment houses or shipping from, for example, China, where you can basically hire companies in China to do the labor, to do everything for you. They'll even create things with your brand on it. You can basically have other people do all the means of production and still be a strong capitalist where you can sell those products. There's some really good examples of that, like Tommy Hilfiger. Tommy Hilfiger, as a company, does not produce its clothes. It actually just puts its label on clothes that are produced for it. So you don't have to control the means of production in order to be a capitalist. If you're a brilliant engineer, you can actually use the fact that there is so much automation to get some other company to fabricate whatever plans you have. So that's the great thing about capitalism. You can always pay somebody else to do the labor that you can't do yourself. And that's really just accessing or leveraging the means of production. So this whole notion is very old. It's like we're talking like 100, 200 years old ideas that he's talking about that just don't apply to the common market now. It just doesn't make any sense. You know, it's like talking about, oh, smoke signals aren't working very well when we're using iPhones. Okay, it just doesn't even make sense. It's just old ideas where the market has really advanced since the times of Marx. So the next thing he talks about quickly, I might have to cut this video too. It's just there's so much that I have to respond to. Is that as a worker you are commodified, and I am going to agree with this. That as workers, we are a commodity. But we are a commodity that is able to determine our own value. And that's a really interesting concept, that most people don't get, especially socialists don't get, that we are a commodity. Yes, we are bought and sold based on how much we're willing. It's not we are bought and sold. It's more like our time is bought and sold. But we get to choose how much we think that time is worth. For example, when you work at a company, and they will generally say you're worth 20 bucks an hour or 30 bucks an hour, whatever it is, and you will be controlled in that respect. But if you can increase your value by learning more things or being better or more efficient at your job, you can demand more value, you can argue back and say, hey, look, I was worth $20 an hour last month, but really I've doubled my production. I've done this, this, this. I've shown you that I'm worth more than that $20. And the employer will say, well, I either agree with you or I disagree with you. And if they agree with you, they might give you a raise. Now, if they disagree with you, you say, well, thank you, goodbye. I'm going to go to a company that appreciates my value. And there will be companies that will appreciate that value if it's truly merited. If you truly are worth double the original value, you can demand that from other companies, and they'll gladly pay it. Back to the story of Henry Ford, this was a big problem that he had. As he made his company much more productive, he found that he would lose employees because they would become really, really productive, and they would get scooped up by his competitors. So he'd have to hire some more people, train them, and get them to that level of productivity, and it was just really annoying. So what he found was a better approach was just pay his employees well, and if they increase their value, pay them a bit more. And most companies will do that if they see value in their employees. Now, a lot of people don't increase their value, and it's their own fault. They're a commodity, but they never increase their value as a commodity, and they are responsible for that. It's on them. That's the great thing about capitalism. It is freedom, but it's also a responsibility that you have to be the one who decides what you are worth. And you do that through working hard, through increasing your knowledge, through increasing your skills, and meriting more value. Now, some people can't do that. That's fine. But they shouldn't then feel like the system is exploiting them. It is not. It is their choice. And that's ultimately the great thing about capitalism. And no other system does that. No other system gives that freedom to decide your own value. So I'm going to play more of his video and respond to it as well.
Your labor is commodified. No matter what you do, if you're employed by a capitalist, you are simply a cog in the machine of a capitalist enterprise, and you can and will be swapped out and replaced by another worker or a machine or an outsourced firm in a developing country as soon as your employer finds out it would be more profitable to let you go. Do you ever wonder why they call it human resources? Because that's all you are. A commodified resource to be consumed and eventually discarded by your capitalist employer. This commodification of labor has even deeper ramifications for the working class. Because we're all trying to sell our labor on the job market, we are in constant conflict and competition with our fellow workers. Because our employers have so much power over us, we do not own our own labor. We are confined and restricted and coerced within this hostile environment until we lose touch with our work and our fellow workers. We are left isolated and alone and fending for ourselves in the mercenary market of jobs. Karl Marx called this condition alienation, and
Wow, so much more stuff to respond to. Again, you'll notice that the communists see everybody as the same. And it really goes into the whole communist way of thinking. They really do believe in equality, and they believe that every individual is the same as any other individual, and that you can just replace people because they're all the same anyways. Well, people are not easily replaced. whenever you have an employee, you have to train them for that job, and it takes time and money to do so. So employees are not easily swapped out. Employers are not very willing to give up employees. Like, I've seen so many companies where you wonder why do they keep on hiring this person? Why don't they fire them? Well, they're so unwilling to fire that person because they know that even if that person's not the most productive, not the greatest employee, that it's actually hard to even replace that unproductive level of employee. So it's not such an easy system to swap out people. That's the one thing that people don't understand about capitalism, that it is unequal, and that is a good thing. Inequality is a brilliant thing about capitalism. It's actually a really good thing that we have the freedom to be different, to be individuals, and we can't be swapped out so easily. Under communism, everybody's treated as a number. You're no different from anyone else, and you're just basically cogs in a wheel, because that's how they see you. They see everybody's equal. So if everybody's equal, well, if you don't perform, they just shoot you. And then they replace you with worker number 2. So that's how communism works. It's not about freedom. Freedom has its consequences, and it's good consequences. It may be harsh to be free, that you might want the security of the government doing everything for you, but you are a cog in the wheel at that point. Well, at least under capitalism, you have that freedom. So I'm going to end it here, because the next 5 minutes of his video, he just goes into Marx's indoctrination stuff, where he talks about the different, disconnects from the products that we produce within a capitalist system. And it's just more crap from Marx, and Marx was an idiot. So I don't even know how to respond to it. It's just like, it's just so out to lunch that it's hard to respond to. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is part 2 of my response to his part 3 of his series. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment below, and check out my other videos. Check out the first part of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.